time to tantalize your earbuds with creative makers and shakers. It's Creative Living, the podcast with Jane Klaus.
This is Creative Living, and I am Jane. So great to have you here. Thanks for diving deep with me into the heart of creativity. And today it's not just a hobby and a pastime. It's also a way of life. It's a driving force, and it's a business in this ever evolving industry that we all love so much. So I've always been fascinated by how creativity really shapes our world. It also literally touches every aspect of our lives if you really sit back and think about it. And it's not just about what creativity is, but rather about the who is behind creativity. So over the years, I've got to chat with some of the most inspiring, influential, cool people in the creative field. I learned that creativity is not just an art, but it's a business, and it requires just as much grit as it does imagination. I love the grit. I thrive on creativity, just like so many of you, but navigating the business side of creativity can give you a headache. It can be scary. It can be a wild ride. It could be exhilarating. And the question just has always been the same. What does that mean? And how does anyone make a living at it? We're all trying, and some of us are very successful. And there's one thing that I am still mastering, and that is the nitty gritty of the business side of creativity. But lucky for us today, my guest, Sean Lowe, is a wizard in that department. Sean is the founder of the Business of Being Creative. It's a consulting firm focused on giving solid, practical, sound, insightful, real, truthful advice to people who are in the business of being creative. Super excited to say hello to Sean Lowe. Hi, Sean.
Hello.
Creativity means so much to so many different people, and it can mean so many different things. What does creativity mean to you?
It's actually for me, I've kind of honed it over the years, been doing this a really long time for a business. From a business perspective, creativity is the ability to what I'm really love to call getting lost in the sauce. And so creativity is not creating something that you kind of know the destination already. Creativity for me is being able to, even if you've done it 1,000 times before, is to go there with the willingness to not know and to see what will emerge based on all of the knowledge and wisdom and talent that you have, to see what will be discovered. And that's what will lead you to the place that you're going to go. So that's creativity, getting lost in the sauce.
I love getting lost in the sauce. So that definition to you, how has that shaped the way you help others manage the business of creativity?
Because you got to get paid for that. You got to get paid for the willingness to not know. And when you get paid for the willingness to not know, it means that everybody involved in creation, and I'm not talking about someone who would paint a painting. Someone who paints a painting is obviously incredibly creative, but at the end of the day, they're selling a product, right? That painting is painted and hopefully someone buys it, right? It's a product. The work that I do is with somebody that's creating for somebody, right? So they're doing their work as part of a commission that's specific to the person they're working for. So you have to have that ability to go with that person or people or business to find that willingness to be so raw as to allow that discovery process to happen, which means that you have to be willing to be wrong, right? And then recover from being wrong. It sounds esoteric. It isn't, right? Because if you can't get paid to ask really, really good questions that will push buttons and move things, you won't get the answer that you want, right? Which is, what is it that we're going to create? Because everything you're trying to do to create is not, look, people can create for a whole lot of reasons, but predominantly the reason you're creating is to transform someone's life, right? You're trying to make them think about the world differently based on the gift that you actually have, right? That they don't have. Because if they actually had that gift, they wouldn't need you, right?
Right. They wouldn't be calling you.
They wouldn't be calling you, right? So they would just do it themselves. But they don't, and so they need you to do that for them. And in doing that for them, what happens is that they hopefully will see a world that they not only do they love, but it would be the world that if they could have created it themselves, that would be the world that they would create, right? And
Yeah.
so making sure that you get paid to ask those questions, to give yourself the opportunity to reach in deeply into someone's life, is what you need to do.
I love that. And it's a part of you, like understanding them
Mm-hmm.
and having them understand you, but you can
Mm-hmm.
then dive deeper into what they're looking for. So then you could satisfy their need to be you in a
Right.
creative aspect.
Absolutely, and still maintain your integrity as an artist, right?
Right.
So you're not being invisible. You're not doing those things that make you invisible. That's not what's happening. What's happening is you're bringing your artistry to it, which means that it's your interpretation, even if you wouldn't do it yourself, right? There's
Hmm.
like, it's the worst question you can ask an interior designer is, do you
Hmm.
like the couch, right? They may love the couch. They may think the couch is the best couch they've ever seen, and they wish that they owned that couch. It would
Right.
also be completely wrong for the space that you're working in, right?
Right. Because it all
Mm,
has to be fit into the
what
picture
is
you
asked
have,
of, right? So
right,
it's not
created
about,
in your head.
so that's the place where a lot of creative business owners fall down, which is that, yeah, sometimes you create art that's just for you, but for the
Mhm.
most part, you're creating for someone else, which may or may not be what you would do. But that doesn't mean doesn't have artistic integrity. Of course it does, right? It just may not be what you would do for yourself, right?
Right, and it becomes sort of a part of you, even
Right,
though it's you're doing it for someone else, you may not want it,
right,
still something in you, still your creativity, still your
right.
artistry.
Absolutely. You're giving
Yeah,
over
that's
to
cool.
that ability for you to see a world that doesn't exist for anybody but you, and give it over because it's so relational to who you're doing it for. And it's such a fun way of being. If you have the business that allows you to do that, it's
Mhm.
just so fun.
It's really cool to, like, think of it. I almost look at it like almost like an infinity circle or an 8, like, you're one part of it and you dive into
Hmm.
the other and you come back
Hmm.
to who you are to help the other
Hmm.
side. So you as a professional in your consulting firm, and I think this is I don't know if there's any other yous on the planet, which is why
I
I was like,
don't know of it.
I have to talk to Sean because you're the only person I feel like out there saying, "I'll do this work for you,"
Mhm.
and you focus on the art and the creative side of it. Let me ask you this though, because you're a lawyer, you've been into investment banking and finances and all this stuff that makes my head explode.
Mhm.
How did you find your path to helping people that need help in the business of creative? What was it about that business that you said, I think I can work with them?
It was dumb luck, to be perfectly honest. I wish I could say, "Oh, I had a passion to go do this, and this is what." No, no, it was dumb luck. Back in 2001, I was running a catering business that was not doing well after 9/11. We were in
Mm,
New York, and needed a job. And Preston Bailey, who is a remarkable man, and remarkable talent, he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm not doing well with my business. I'm very, very in debt. Can you help me raise money to get out of debt?" And of course, with that background said, "Sure." Well, obviously, I couldn't, but I figured out that I could actually run his business. And so I ran his business for 6.5 years, and really at that time, because I just needed a job, right?
mm,
And needed a chance to start over. And it just sang. And we fought like cats and dogs. I was that banker type A thing, and it's like, you should do it this way, and he was like, "No, it doesn't work that way, baby." And so we came to understand each other, and really do things, because I didn't have any real I don't have that. I love art, I love creativity, I love what it is, but it's not the driving force for me, right? The driving force for me is, do you get the opportunity to do it again, right? Are you sustaining yourself? Are you doing the things that are going to allow it to grow? So that's what drove me. And so together we did really well. And then he has a dear friend, Vincent Wolf, who's a wonderful, amazing interior designer, did not need my help with the business side, but was having great opportunities for things outside of his core business. And so I literally split my time between Preston and Vincent for the last 3 years of my time with Preston,
mhm.
and learned of my trade with doing that was that I learned everything there was to know about the interior design business from Vincent, and the way he did it. And because of the way he did it, which is so iconic to him, it was a really great lesson, because only few people can do it the way that Vincent does it. So knowing how to do it not his way, Vincent is not the person who's going to like deep into your skull. He's the person who's going to say, hey, this is the house that I would live in if that were my house. Right. And people love that. Right. So it's just a different way of creativity. So I started to really take all of those lessons, and, back in around 15 years now, I just left and said, I want to do this for just more than the two of you. So there we go.
Thank you to them. And thank you to you for saying, I can help other people to do this. So on your website, thebusinessofbeingcreative.com, is that right? There's a quote, and I love this so much. And I was like, do I tell him that I love this quote? Do I read this quote? I'm like, no, I do, because it's so important, because it resonates with me. It says, everyone should be creative, whatever your art is. It should invigorate you and bring you joy. And if it happens to be your business, it should bring you the money you need to keep being creative. I love that so much. I love the notion of using joy as your compass, meaning focus on joy, the money will come. In your experience, do you find that following that joy as your compass can generate income?
It's the only way it can generate income.
Focusing on the joy. It
has to be. It's the only thing that matters.
And can you find, what's the balance? So you find so much joy in being creative, like you're going out to find this amazing antique couch, and we're going to add these cool throw pillows to it. It's going to be perfect for that room. And now all of a sudden I forgot about all the business stuff.
Well, because the business stuff is joy, right? And that's the whole point. And the whole if you can appreciate it's interesting how when we talk about business stuff, we talk about what we know to be business, and we talk about the rational world, right? And yet joy is not rational, right? And creating joy is not rational. So getting paid an irrational number requires that you have a sense of what you need, right? So joy is different for everybody. Some people love to live in a grand house. Other people care less. Some people like driving fancy cars, and some people don't. Everyone has their own version of joy. And it's not consumerism. It's just whatever it is that makes them feel great, right? And so that's true for clients, and it's true for businesses. And so the reality, though, is that joy costs money. Right.
Yeah.
And so in order to live the life you want to live, you know what you need. Right. And so if you can understand that to be not happy, to be joyous, that this is what I need for my life without qualification, meaning that, look, it's not about, hey, I should just afford 3 Starbucks a week. But no, if you need Starbucks every day, then that's what you do. Right. And so making sure that you have an understanding of what it takes for you to have the joy that you want, right, is the basis of all creative business. That's the part that I wish I could put out to everyone in this world, because it's not rational. Rational means that there's one number for everybody, and if you live this way, this is your number. It's like, no, that doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's irrational. And when it's irrational and you get a number, well, then this is how much I need to live my life today. And then all you have to figure out is, what does it take for you to get it? Like, how many employees do you need? What offices do you need? All those expenses. And now you know how much money you need to make. And then the only question you have to ask yourself is how much you want to work. Because there is, the difference between creative business, for the most part, 99% of the most part, and other businesses is like, it's very scarce. Not very many creatives do 50 projects, let alone 10, right? Most of them are somewhere between, let's call it 8 and 15 projects a year. Some people do more, but for the most part, that we're talking less than 50 for sure.
Right.
And so you're only going to do things for 50 clients, right? A year, maybe. And that's very, very big business. More likely it's 15. So you're working for 15 people a year. So you have to matter to those 15 people. And how are you going to matter to them? Well, you have to know what you need first, right? And the only way to know what you need is to say, hey, here's what I need. This is the money I need to live my life. Here's what it's going to take to get it. Divide by 15.
I love that. And that's so cool too, because if you're really creative and you don't want to sit down and do that work, you go through the uncomfortable, you write it down, you figure out what you need. And then I see where the joy comes in the business side of it, because once you reach those 15 and you're at that number, but boy, doing business at that point is really joyful.
Yeah, exactly right. You get paid. That what you just said the way I translate that for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully other people will too, is that you don't get paid to do the job you're doing. You get paid to do the next one. Because if you're think about it, if you're getting paid what you need, no more, no less, you'll be happy to do the next one and charge the same to do the next one. And I know all projects are different and pricing is different, but on a relative basis, it's all getting paid properly for each piece of work you do is going to fuel you. If you got overpaid, most people don't really feel great about that, and so they basically underbid the next job. If you got underpaid, then you put on this idea that this person is going to take advantage of you for the next job, and they don't bring that to the table, right? So now you're putting in jeopardy your ability to perform because you got overpaid or underpaid on the last job.
Can you be
So
too greedy?
you can't be too greedy. And if you're taking care of yourself, you can absolutely be too greedy if you don't consciously leave money on the table. I always leave money on the table. It's not greedy to say that you need what you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to call that greedy, then fine. It's not greed to me. It's self-sustaining, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
can be perceived as greedy. If you want, a
Right.
very big number for yourself, then you can say, well, that's greedy, but not really, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
I don't perceive it as greed. Other people might. I think if it's self-sustaining, that it isn't greed. But then if you are greedy, you're going to get crushed, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you're going to get destroyed because you do not want to play in a rational world. That's the thing. Is like, yes, some creative professionals are very, very successful, and that's wonderful. But for the most part, the people they're working for are more successful, right? They have
Right.
that discretionary income to spend. They
Mm-hmm.
can afford, right, to invest in you
Mm-hmm.
and not have it affect the way that they live their lives. So they play a game every day that most creatives just don't, right? And so when you play in that rational world, you're going to get beat. If it was a competition, and it isn't, but if it was, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to get beat because they understand things, right?
Right.
In terms of just the hardcore rational way of paying money for stuff, right?
Sure. And they
Then
could find the next person that will do maybe even a better job than you if they feel like you're being greedy.
exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Exactly
think
right.
that's a feeling thing too.
It's a
Uh,
total feeling thing. You're exactly
yeah. Yeah. It's in your gut. You know it. You work as a coach and a
right. hmm
mentor
hmm
for mostly interior designers.
It's more morphed into that. I've
Yeah.
worked, pretty well. Now it's about 80% interior designers. I've
Uh-huh.
always run a group for, event professionals for the last, well, God, 6 years. And I've always had my fingers in a lot of things. I like being involved in a lot of different creative industries
Hmm.
because it fuels me. Like I've worked with,
Yeah.
you name kind of creative, I've worked with them. But for
Yeah.
the most part now, it's just been after COVID, interior design took off, and
Yeah.
I was, very excited to always had a position in interior design. And it just is morphed out that way. It's just because I'm definitely a starfish guy. I have a mentoring program, but I also do retainer work, which I
Mm.
only work with 10 clients at a time. And it's
Wow.
just me.
Yeah.
So I just, whoever is going to say, hey, I want to jump in and figure this out. And then for myself, then I work with them. So interior design has been at
Sure.
the forefront for the last
Sure.
4 or 5 years. So I love them and will continue to love them and
Of
love working
course.
with them. But
Well,
I love working with all creatives to be
yeah, and the idea of, interior design, other creatives, designers, we can
hmm
broaden the whole scope of who's creative and what the creative business is and who's in
hmm
it. I'm
hmm
in it. We're all
Yeah,
in it
yeah, we're
in
all
some
in
way,
it.
shape,
Yeah,
or
for
form.
sure.
So because of that work and because of being a starfish and because you've touched to so many people or touched with on so many people, what can you tell us, or do you know or see the most common mistake most creative people make when trying to turn their creativity into a successful business?
Yeah, yeah. There's two.
Okay.
There is not knowing the there's not knowing the time and place of where you might be in the work that you do.
Mm,
Like when we all start out, right? We all have to do what we have to do. I mean, you had to do what you had to do in order to get your place in where you are. And
mhm.
there's sacrifices and investments that we have to do. And then we know what could be, right? But at a certain point, you cross over from being that hustler, if you will,
Right.
to having to be the person that you actually are. And that's the place where most creative businesses either they jump that gun, or they, more likely than not, they don't, right? And
Mhm.
so I know I've given the example many times for many people, but the reality is that it's like being a caterpillar and a butterfly, right? So caterpillars eat leaves, they don't fly. They have to get enough nutrition in them to be heavy enough to get the chrysalis, and then ultimately to leave the chrysalis and fly away as a butterfly, right? And so
Yeah.
that is, to me, the trajectory of a creative business.
Oh.
Maybe all businesses, but definitely creative business for sure. Creative business and necessary for creative business. Some fun facts about butterflies is that they remember every single day being a caterpillar. So that's fun to remember. So you remember every single day when you
Of
were hustling to
course.
get where you are.
Yeah.
The only problem with butterflies is that they don't see the same world as a caterpillar, because a caterpillar is stuck on a leaf, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Butterflies aren't. And more important, and the most important part for me, is that butterflies can't eat solid food. They can
Oh.
only eat liquid. So they can't eat what a caterpillar eats and hope to survive.
Wow.
So
I love this.
so
And I love
that's
that you're using butterflies for creative people.
exactly, that's you're welcome. I love that for
I
them.
like there's a term, a lot of paper crafters, if you make a mistake, just put a butterfly on it. So
Yeah.
it really does. I don't know if you knew that, but
I
it
did
this
not
is
know that.
yeah, everyone
Uh,
puts a butterfly on it. If you mess up something, put a butterfly on it. It'll be fine.
Butterfly, there you go.
You can use that, by the way.
Mm.
I want to talk about side hustles because you mentioned when they're done doing the hustle,
Mhm.
are done being hustlers, and they want to maybe take this business into the next level. And we've heard a lot of side hustles come about during the pandemic, people quitting their jobs and
Mhm.
saying, okay, I'm going to take the side hustle and make it a business. You know, that can be fragile in the beginning, like you
Yeah,
said.
absolutely.
How do we know it's when it's time? And how do you know where to start?
In terms of
I mean,
when
when
it's
you
time to leave to go to make this your life, is that what
Yeah.
you're asking?
Yeah, yeah. How do you know it's time to start this side hustle and make it into a full-time business? Is there a risk, obviously, or is there just a clear sign that says go?
For me, the sign is clear,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
for others, it's not. Most people go and say, wow, your work is so beautiful. You just did such a great job. Right. And then they say, wow, I can really do this because my rooms are beautiful. My cake is delicious.
mhm,
Well, you pick it. Right. So they focus on the end. They focus on the end. And if the end is rewarded for them, no matter the price they paid to get there, right, then it validates the idea that they should go do this for a living. Right. So most people, when they do that, they focus so hard on, did the client love it in the end, right? Not how, like, they're barely standing, they,
mm,
about to
right.
die, but the
Yeah,
client loved in the end, so they should start it. The time to know when to leave is
yeah,
like when the client, or you get the feedback that working with you was such every day was such a dream. I knew that this was going to play out 6 months before it played out.
mhm, mm,
As you start to get better and better at the process of creation, and you start to really appreciate that you have it in hand about the process of creation, and
mhm,
that people can talk to you about the way that you create, because every creative business, by the way, I should have started with this.
mhm,
Every creative business has only 4 different transitions and 8 stages, right? Well,
uh-huh,
everyone. It doesn't matter which one you're in, right?
okay,
So the first part of it is you have a potential client who doesn't know you. They have never talked to you. They might see your website, your Instagram, have been referred to you, but they don't know you. And then they call you, right? And
mhm,
so the
mhm,
question is, who answers the phone, right? So the person who answers the phone is there to validate whatever they saw on the site. So they become your actual client, right? But they're
yeah,
not going to become, if you're going to be a chameleon, good luck. But if you're going to be saying, hey, I do this kind of work, it's probably going to help you out. And then you start your creative process, which is you find out about them, you have ideas, right? You go back and forth. But ultimately, you have to design. And design is a very technical word for me. It's not
mm,
actually just design.
design, yeah,
Design is
mhm,
yes, no, pay me money, right? Yes, no, and or pay me money, meaning that I'm going to work so hard during this idea stage to know you, so that I'm going to put what in front of you, what is necessary for you to make an effective decision. An effective decision is not yes. An effective decision is, whatever I've shown you is going to justify whatever it is that you decide. If you decide yes, wonderful, we keep going. If
Mm-hmm.
you decide no, there's no more information that's going to get you to yes, right? It
Right.
is
Right. Yes.
truly self-awareness, right? That
Right.
you know them. So that is design. And
Wow.
design can be one big design. It can be multiple designs, but the idea to design stage happens. But then once it's designed, right? The way I think about the idea in design stage is that it's like Wonderland, right? So, and every artist is the Mad Hatter, right?
Yeah.
Because the Mad Hatter knows where he or she is going, but nobody else does, and it feels crazy.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, there's many, many ways to great design, right? And so it's not logical,
Right.
right?
Right. It's
One
like Bob
designer will,
Ross
yeah,
when you're like, you're ruining the painting by putting that
like
black tree there, but it always comes out great because it's his design.
it's his way and it's his
Yes.
path to
Yeah.
knowledge, and so then the rest of it's pretty straightforward, right? So once you're
Right.
out of the design stage, it's design to production. You got to actually take it from your head and put it wherever you're going to make it,
Mm-hmm.
either their house, on a wedding or cake or whatever it is. You have to actually make it happen.
Yep.
So that's production, and then ultimately you have to have opening night, right? Whatever that is. So there's installation, right? Reveal,
Yeah.
if you want to
Yeah.
call it that. So those are the stages of every single creative business. There is nothing. And where most creative businesses fall down are in the transitions, right? Because each one of those stages is a one-way valve.
Yeah. You have to
when they
get to the
leak
next.
when
Yeah.
they leak, it's like having a leaky valve in your heart. You're going to die, right? So if people think that design isn't done when it actually is, then they're going to
Mhm.
want more ideas, but design's not done, right? So where are you? It's the valve. It's making sure you're going through
Mm.
that one-way valve. And as you do that part, then yeah, as you get that process down in a way that clients definitely understand it, then it's time for you to go. It's time for you to do it on your own.
Yeah. And that's to be aware of knowing that there's no leaky valves is
Mhm.
probably a safe space for you. And really it's something you have to sit back and really take a step away. Sometimes I like to not be me and look
Mhm.
at me and go, okay, where are you at?
Yeah, I
And
wish more
maybe
people
that's
would do that. It's great.
I mean, I think it's from just doing this business so many years. Like you can't be yourself, or else you
Right.
get really hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I want to talk about the culture. People defining the culture of their creative business. Is there a
Yeah.
formula on defining your culture, or is it just something that you know instinctively?
No, I think there's a formula, but that's not formula as in a specific thing, but I
Mhm.
think that every creative has a DNA of the one thing they have to have,
Mm.
the one thing that brings it. So, a great example of what seems ephemeral but isn't. And so I have a wonderful client, Robin Henry. She's an amazing interior designer,
Mhm.
and her DNA is it's beautiful when it's done, and it's done when it's beautiful.
It's beautiful when it's done, and it's done. Yes, I love that.
And so that's what she does. Every
Oh,
single thing is
so
about that.
good.
Every single thing that drives her to do that. She can always have that as her beacon, right? To come back
Uh-huh.
to how she charges, why she does things, what her process is. And it's all built around that. That's her DNA. And so I think every single creative business has a DNA like that. Not like I love to do the work that I do, because clearly you love to do the work you do, because that's why you're there. But
All
there's
right.
something that is not enough, that you love and you're passionate. It really has to be, if I want to say what's the formula, you have to tell me what you're obsessed about.
So good.
So once you're obsessed, you can make that. And I truly can build a business. Once I know what you're obsessed about, once I know what your DNA is, I can build any business creatively around it. Any business.
I love that so much. And so that's kind of homework for everybody that's listening. And that is take a minute. Maybe it's writing down all of these different things that make you
Hmm.
tick and what your DNA is, and then really feeling
Yeah.
into the one that most resonates how you feel.
Yeah. And I think the one thing to do is two exercises. Is one is a great exercise is it's Julia Cameron way back when, The Artist's Way. It's a riff on that, which is just wake up in the morning, come up with a topic for your business, write for 10 minutes before your feet hit the ground, put it away, do it for 3 days on a specific topic, but you're not really thinking about it, you're just writing. And what you'll find is, okay, this is what I care about, right? And then that exercise, do that for 3 days, don't read it for 3 days, and then read it back, and you'll see, wow, I really
Mhm.
want this. And the next thing is, like, when you take a look at, and I've read thousands of sites at this point and thousands of places, if you're really going to be in the creative space, you have to appreciate that it's about niche and scarcity and identity. And what that means for me is something very specific. I read lots of websites, and I can tell you we are just so passionate about what we do. Our spaces bring tremendous happiness to clients, and they love our client service that we provide. That literally told me nothing,
Yeah.
because the opposite of it can't be true. We hate what we do.
Right.
Clients don't matter to us, and we can't wait to not do this anymore. Right. So what that means is if you go through all of your writing, everything that you do, and say, can the opposite be true? And if it can, you've told me something. I only do blue weddings. Well, that's great. I only do black weddings. That's great. Right. So people can then understand, clients and vendors and anyone who happens to take a look at what you do can see, oh, this is who you are. Right. Because it's about not having the fear of not being seen for the thing that you're not. Right. And so you
Right.
only do blue weddings. You really don't want to do black weddings. Right.
Right.
So you better be telling me that you do black weddings if you do them, or blue weddings if you do them. Please don't tell me that you can do black weddings if you want me to. Right. No, you actually can't. And the reason is something very, very specific, because there is somebody out there that just does black weddings,
Right.
and they will do them better than you. And you are actually, for me anyway, and I understand maybe this is too woo-woo, but for me, it doesn't, you owe your client, whether they are your actual client or potential client, the very best. Because if your goal is to bring them joy, they should be in the position that's going to best bring them that joy.
Right.
And so if what they really want is a black wedding and you don't do black weddings, you're robbing them of this opportunity to actually
Right.
get the black wedding that they want. Right. And I
Yeah.
just think that, I just think that it's really, that's what makes creativity so fun, right? Is if you find the person that wants what you want,
Yep.
then your ability to bring that to them
Sure.
is truly deep in your gut,
I
and they
know.
will pay you for that.
Yes, it's like peeling off a layer of your skin and seeing yourself in that other person because you connect so well. The other thing too is being true to who you are. So
Yeah.
I don't believe that it's woo-woo, because I'm the same. I'm right with you there. I think you have to just know that it's safe to be seen and heard as who you are. So if the person that only does blue weddings, that's what you do. It's safe to be that person. And you have
Yeah.
to know that, because the person that wants a blue wedding will call you.
Right.
You
Exactly
will
right.
connect eventually. Don't freak out. In your
There's
advice
only
column,
15 of them.
there's there's only 15. You should stand on one of them.
Yeah.
The advice column, businessofhome.com. You
Mhm.
give amazing advice.
Thank you.
One of the ones I read, I think it was just the most recent one. You said to stand out, because sometimes as creatives, it's like we're in an arena of 70,000 people standing in the back holding up a sign that says, pick me, pick me, pick me. And so if everyone's going to deliver the same thing, and you kind of just touched on this with the blue weddings or the black weddings, you had said you have to be able to see yourself as a person that has the ability to entertain. So does that mean that you need to be a disruptor in what you do, or true to yourself, like we just talked about, or just redefining the game that you're playing and working in?
I think it's the last one. I think it's about redefining the game. I think it's a great question. Thank you. Because it's not about, it's not about saying, hey, I'm going to not do what everybody else does. But it is about saying that, because then you're just being relationship to what everybody else does. So that's why I say, don't think I do not really enjoy think outside the box. I really don't. It's not just a tagline for me, because then you're derivative to the box. Right. And so they do it this way, I do it this way. Then you're both comparing each other to the two separate boxes. So that's why I say you have to erase the box and see what the world could be. Right. And what's the best expression of what it is that you're doing, knowing full well that you can express yourself differently no matter what. So I think it's less about being a disruptor, which means that, hey, I'm going to make a brand new toy, and more about, for me, every single creative business should be incredibly flexible, but flexible by way of a slinky, right? So if you think of a slinky, right, slinky on the shelf is a wonderful little coil, but down the stairs, twisting and turning is kind of not, it's every parent's nightmare, right? But the fact is that it's the same toy, right? It doesn't
Right,
look the same,
right.
doesn't act the same, isn't the same. And the only way it isn't the same toy is if you bend or break a rib, right? It's just true, right? So
Yeah,
that
right.
is your creative business. So long as the ribs are rock solid and are always where they need to be, you can twist and turn and do whatever it is you want to do it, and then use the world we live in, with all the technology that's available to us today, to express yourself for what is really non-essential information, to entertain. And I don't mean entertain like, sit with popcorn, right?
Yeah, right.
It's
Or
more about like,
do a tap dance.
it's not that. It's more about, can I engage you? So to quote, to paraphrase Seth Godin, right, is that whatever I provide you, you're going to miss it if I didn't provide it. So
Right.
you would miss it if it was gone, right? And
Yeah,
so can you
that's
do
great.
that? Can your process create that? Can you do those things that are going to be, and maybe it's not what anybody does, right? Maybe it's, I want to do video because I think that my clients would rather watch a minute video of me and my team than, look at some boring spreadsheet, right? So
I
it's
love
it's
it.
it's making sure that's what I mean by entertaining, is how do I engage the
Your
process
client.
better than I ever have, right?
You've given us a lot to think about here, Sean, for real. You mentor people, but you also said you have retainer clients,
hmm
only a select few.
hmm
What is your main goal when you're mentoring somebody? What's your main goal for that particular person, or is it changed by
It
person,
hasn't
by
changed,
creator?
and it's been that way. And please do not hear any ego in this. My main goal for all my clients, but particularly retainer clients, is for them to know, whether we're working together or not, if they come across a business challenge, they say, what would Sean do? And that means, without
Mm,
me there in the room, that means they're
sure.
thinking about where's their feet on the ground and what is it that's going to take them where they want to go. And so if they're constantly doing that, then that would be success for me, is that they feel very much in control of being the author of the story, right? Because the author of the story knows where things are going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else does, right? And the best part of a story is if you don't know where it's going, but then the author does. So if you're always in control of being the author of the story and constantly evolving the story you actually want to tell and how you're telling it, and being able to adapt yourself to that, then I will have been successful, right? And to know that those ribs, my work was really well done if those ribs are just so solid
Right.
that you can twist and turn them a million different ways without breaking them. And that would be my success, and that's the goal that I have. Any consultant or anyone in my position that says you should just charge more money, yeah, okay, great, you're not worth anything.
Right.
It's not about that for me. What it's about is making sure that you're paid properly for the thing you're doing when you're doing it. So if that's creating, that you're getting paid to create. If it's producing, meaning you're getting ready to actually do it, then you get paid for that. And then you get paid to actually make it happen opening night, right? And so if so long as that's happening, and then once that is the core of everything, and then of course things happen apart from that, right? And art transcends its medium, truly, right?
Right.
You can be doing a lot of different things and you can
Right.
get paid to do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, you have to have your core, you have to have your DNA.
Mm,
Apple will always sell computers, even though
right.
they could stop selling computers tomorrow, right?
I
So
love it.
you
And
have to
just with
have
your
your core.
body, you have to have a strong core
That's
before
right.
you work on anything else.
Exactly. You have 1,000. That's so well said. Exactly right.
Thank you. Well, you have given us lots and lots of things to think about, but we can also learn more from you by listening to your podcast,
hmm
which is amazing. Which we can find that on your website. Can we can connect with you? Website, socials. Where do we find all
Yep,
that?
that's it. So thebusinessofbeingcreative.com. I'm on Instagram. Think it's Sean Lowe one.
Mhm.
Facebook. I mean, if anyone's still on Facebook, I hope they are. The one thing I'm not on is I'm not on TikTok. Sorry, but
Uh,
making videos not my thing. But all the socials, Twitter, and all the rest of it. So X,
yes.
sorry
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that.
listen, I hope everybody took some notes
Yeah,
because we have work to do. But if we want to learn more, we will go to
yeah.
your website,
And
The
email me.
Business of Being Creative. Yeah, email
Yeah,
you. Can we do that?
I'm pretty responsive, very responsive. So feel free to email me,
And you
Sean.
always take mentoring clients.
Always take mentoring clients, and I always take retainer clients if there's room.
I
So
love it. It's so
yeah,
good. Give us one takeaway. What if there's one thing we could walk away with today from the great Sean Lowe? What is it?
be better tomorrow than you are today, and get paid for
You're awesome,
it.
Sean. Thank you so much for joining us on Creative Living.
You're welcome, more than welcome.
Live better, creatively. For more inspiration, visit janeklaus.com. Thank you for listening.